I'm going to show you how to build a $9 arrow, shoot just as well as a $90 arrow. Building an entry-level arrow to shoot as well as a high-end performing target arrow is not as easy as you might think. It is a tedious process, it takes some time, but it will be well worth your money. Before even going through the process of selecting an arrow, you need to know what bow you're going to use. I'm going to use the Void RX9 Ultra from factory, an ATA rating of 336 feet per second. I'm going to shoot this bow at 70 pounds, a 29-inch draw, and I'm going to select my arrows based off of this specifications. My arrow that I'm going to show you to build today is going to be from Easton. Easton's got a wide variety of arrows on the market, and one of their most entry-level affordable arrows is the Easton 6.5 bowhunter shafts and arrows. So with the bow specification being at 70 pounds and 29 inches, I can either use a 340 spine or a 300 spine arrow. I've selected to choose a 300 spine because I'm going to add more weight in the front of this specific arrow, which is going to weaken the spine, which will give me the optimum spine and paper tune and accuracy for my bow. But if you are not going to put in a 50 grain brass in the front, I would advise using a 340 spine with a 100 grain tip in the front. Obviously, if you make your arrow short for a 27-inch archer or even 28-inch archer and you're going to cut your arrow short, rather use the 340 spine than the 300 spine. My arrow, I'm going to cut at 29 inches with 50 grain brass in the front, 100 grain tip in the front, and the total arrow weight will be just over 450 grains. The pro shops are going to hate me for showing this, but the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to grab a handful of these shafts for the selection process. This is a numbers game, and it's getting the quality out of the quantity. And we're going to get the best shafts out of, this is roughly about two dozen shafts. And we're going to get the best shafts from this. To start eliminating the bad ones, we're going to put the arrows on an arrow spinner and we're going to see which of these spin the best. And I'm going to get about 12 that I think will spin well. And if I don't get 12, I'm going to start digging into the bunch there to make sure I get 12. And then I'm going to go into step 2. But first, we're going to spin these and we're going to look whether the knock is straight and whether the front section spins straight. And from these, you start selecting the best ones. Out of the 25, I've got 12 arrows that spin well, and these arrows have got a straightness tolerance of 0.005. And within this, there are some gems, and I've got 12 of them right here, but this isn't where it stops. I need it to be perfect. The next step will be is I'm going to weigh these, and I'm going to get the 6 shafts that weigh exactly the same. The reason why I weigh them before I cut them is I need to make sure that they weigh exactly the same, even before we start the cutting process. And once we start cutting the arrows, that'll make it even more accurate from a tolerance level and straightness level and from a weight perspective before we even start adding the components to the actual arrow build. I'm going to remove this nocks in the weighing of the shaft process because the knock in itself might have some inconsistencies. So I'm removing all the nocks and we will not be using these nocks in the arrow build. This all seems tedious, but this is the whole point of it. We are only going to weigh the shafts at the moment, but I am going to weigh the nocks to show you the actual weight difference in some of these components. And what I've seen by weighing these nocks, there's almost a half a grain difference between the nocks that I've just taken out. And with the other components added to it, if you look at the weight of the brass insert, if you look at the weight of the fletchers and the knock and the other components, it might give you a 3 to 5 grain difference after the arrow has been built. The whole idea is to build 6 arrows that weigh exactly the same. And we go through this process. It does take a little bit of time, but like I said, it will be well worth your time. It's actually nice to see of the 12 shafts that I've weighed, 11 are exactly the same at 304 grains at full length, and one was weighing at 306, a 2 grain difference. And it's nice to see that it is actually nice and consistent for the price range of arrows that I'm building today. From the 11 that I know weighs exactly the same and that spun well, I am still going to spin, then I'm going to choose my 6th favorite to build. I can say from the 11 that I've had, 8 really spin well, and I'm going to remove 3 that I'm not happy with. 8 really spun well, they weigh the same. I'm selecting 6, and now I'm going to go through the process of elimination with the components that I'm going to choose. There's at least 6 variables that come into play when building an accurate arrow, and before I even start assembling the arrow, I'm going to weigh each and every component and make sure that they are consistent and they can all add to the accuracy of the specific arrow that I'm building. The numbers that I'm tracking is the shaft weight, the insert weight, the point weight, the nock weight, the fletches, and I'm adding a uni-bushing. The uni-bushing makes, for me, a very big difference in the actual accuracy of this arrow. So this is a nice upgrade I'm doing to a inexpensive arrow to make it nice and durable and very consistent and accurate. The shaft weight, we've measured that at being at 304 grains. So I'm going to put here 304. I am going to cut the shafts at 29 inches and I'm going to weigh them again just for good measure. These are all 304. The first component I'm weighing is a 50 grain brass insert. I don't need this insert to be 50 grain. I need 6 inserts that just weigh exactly the same. I'm expecting a little bit of a variable, but I just need 6 that weigh exactly the same. Most of the inserts that I've weighed were between 49 and 49.5 grains in weight, and I've seen a consistent number of them being 49.5 grains, but the lowest that I've tested was 47 grains, which is a 2.5 grain difference. But I'm going to go with the 49.5 grains. They were the most consistent, so I'm going to put that down here, and I've selected them and I've put them one side, 49.5 grains. The next component on the list is field points. I'm going to use a 100 grain field point. And like I said before, I just need consistency. So anything that's close to 100 grains, that's exactly the same. That's what I'm going to use. I can already see a 3 grain difference between the different field points. I'm getting good consistency with 100.6 grains. That is what I'm going to put one side, and that's what I'm going to use. What is important and something that you need to keep in mind is when I'm putting these field points on my actual arrow, I'm also going to spin this, and these 6 that I've selected is not necessarily going to spin as well as the others. So make sure you've got some extras to remove this if this doesn't spin well. The weight that I'm going for is a 100.6. I've got a few different ones there. I don't know if they're going to be straight, so I've selected more, but it's a 100.6 grain field point that I'm just going to write down here. The next component I am going to weigh is the nock. I am using a Easton G nock, and I'm just taking it out of the pack here, and exactly the same as the field points. Some of these nocks might go in a little bit tight in the uni-bushing and it might not spin as well. And I reckon it starts from the nock, and it's so important to make sure that this is very straight when you spin the arrow. So I'm going to weigh them. I'm going to weigh a couple. I'm going to try and get 10 that weighs the same, and that is the nocks that I'm going to put into the arrow. If something doesn't spin well, I'm going to remove it, and I'm just going to put in another nock. Not a lot of variation here, pretty consistent. But because we're picky, a 0.1 or 0.2 is not what we're looking for. We want to make sure that it is 0.1 exactly on the money. The majority of the nocks were 6.6 grains. The heaviest one was 6.9. I've got a bunch of them that's 6.6 that I can keep and that I can use for the bow build, for the arrow build. The uni-bushings is the component obviously which the nocks goes into, and the weight on the uni-bushings itself that I've done the same process for is 12.1 grains. I've got 6 here that works well, and I'm just going to add that here, 12.1 grains. Do know that a uni-bushing makes a massive difference in accuracy and improving your accuracy, and also in durability. If you do hit your arrow from behind. That uni bushing protects your arrow from being damaged, and if the uni bushing actually gets damaged, you just take it out and you add a new one, and you are just adding longevity to the arrows that you are spending so much time in building and getting accurate. I've chosen to use the Alpha vein from Boning. This is the AR-1250 material. It's very durable, it's accurate. I'm also using the similar material on my target arrows, and it seems to be working well. There's no specific reason, I just like it. I'm just going to test it and see how it works. Just going to weigh a couple to see that I get consistency out of this and make sure that I do not mess this up. It's worth going through the fletches. There is some inconsistencies. We are going to work on a 0.1 on the scale here. You also need to make sure your scale is consistent. You know, I always keep on resetting the scale, just making sure that I'm getting the right reading and it doesn't get stuck on the same reading all the time. But because we've got 6 arrows that we're building, we're putting 3 fletches on each of the arrows. We need to make sure we've got 18 fletches that weigh the same. So it does take a little bit of time, but well worth it. The consistent number we got on the fletches was 8.4 grains per fletch. We've got a couple there to build the arrows. We are just putting that down here to make sure we keep a count on it all, and now we are ready to start the actual build of the arrow. I've got all my components here. They all weigh exactly the same. I've got 6 uncut shafts here that weigh exactly the same, but before I cut them I need to put in the uni bushing and the nock, and then I'm going to cut the arrow. This spins really nice. The nock that I've got in there is spinning nicely. I am using the nock tool from Easton to actually put that in, so I know it's not being bent or getting damaged or anything like that. I am going to cut this arrow at 29 inches. I like cutting my arrows at the length that I am shooting my bow at my draw length. This means that the actual end of the shaft is going to stick out slightly in front of my bow, and that is where my broadhead is going to be. For me, it's nice having the broadhead in front of my hand and not far back. Should the arrow fall out of the rest for some reason, or when I draw the bow and so on, and it's easy for me to let down. And the 29 inches will work really well with the spine on my bow. 29 inches, that's exactly on the money. And I just want to make sure that it's nice and flush. That's 29 inches. Arrow spins really well. I'm just squaring this out to make it easy and quick. If you want to go through the process of using a nice squaring tool, please do so. I'm just making sure this is nice and level and straight. My arrow cutter does cut this nice and straight. This is nice and flush. Now it's time to glue in the insert. I'm just cleaning out the excess carbon inside here. I'm using methylated spirits and I'm just cleaning the inside out, make sure that it's nice and dry. I prefer using super glue when gluing in the insert. The reason why I'm using super glue is I don't want this to come out at all. I do not want to rotate my insert or anything like that. I'm going to just glue it in with super glue, and that's going to stay in there forever. If you do want to use hot melt, if you do want to align the inserts when you are using different broadheads and so on, you might want to heat this up, and then you can rotate the insert in itself, and then it can align with the fletches. I do not like using hot melt on carbon shafts like this. I just sometimes lose the inserts. They just pull out the target. So I just want them to get in and get stuck in there and just stay there. I'm adding the 100 grain field point. I am going to put this on a spin tester immediately to see whether this field point is nice and straight. I've screwed in a random field point just to check if it's nice and straight. And this one's okay, but it's not what I want. So I'm going to change this one out with another field point, and this one is definitely better. Now I just need to add the fletches, then we are ready to build the next couple of arrows. The advice that I do want to give you, if you want things to be consistent, use the same fletching jig. If you do build a lot of arrows, it might take a little bit of time, but the purpose is to get 6 arrows that's got the same fletch configuration out of the same fletching jig that weighs the same, and this is the way you have to do it. I've got methylated spirits and I'm cleaning all the excess dust off the back of the shaft itself. I want to make sure there's no residue or any dust on here, that when I do put the actual fletch on, that it does not come loose for any reason. The boning vanes are pre-primed and it's easy to stick. It's one of the best sticking vanes in the industry in my opinion. I am using it on my target arrows as well, and it's quick. You only have to keep it on there for a couple of seconds. I am using Q-Bond super glue for this. I'm not putting on too much super glue. I don't want it to get all gluey and wet and runny. All the excess glue I just wipe off quickly. And once I'm done putting these fletches on, I just put a little dab on the front of each of the fletches, just making sure they're going to be nice and secure. But we are done in building the actual arrow itself. Just a small dab of glue there. 1 arrow down, 5 to go. 6 arrows done and dusted. I've got them from number 1 to number 6. The Nock spin well, the points spin well. I have not put them on a grain scale yet, but I want to see if they all weigh the same. And there you have it, 467.5. 6 arrows that weigh exactly the same. The arrows spin great, the nocks and the points are nice and straight. So these arrows are really inexpensive arrows that we've built up to be and feel like expensive arrows. Comment down below if you want to see me put the inexpensive arrows up against the most expensive target arrows Easton has to offer. Please like and subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one.